he sat in his chair for 9 years with a broken heart. And I think he tried to be as positive as he could. My mom had just retired from our parochial school we went to, and they were going to spend their retired lives together, and they had all these plans and plans that she did without him after he died happily. But the day that he died, they had gone to a movie and came home. And according to my mom, was the only person I have to hear from, is that he started complaining about how his chest wasn't feeling so good, or he wasn't feeling so good, or whatever. When any normal wife would call an ambulance, she told him to, well, why don't you just kind of lay your chair back a little bit and rest? And she was telling me this after he died. And then she's like, and I just hope I didn't kill him by doing that. Just having this whole crying fit about, I hope I didn't cause it because I told him to lay back and relax, and I should have called that ambulance sooner, and all of this. And I'm just trying to put together the timeline too, because it wasn't adding up from when she called me. And but what am I insinuating? I'm really nothing but the fact I don't think she did anything to him at all. But I do think she might have watched him have a heart attack, or come in the room afterwards and go take a shower before she called the ambulance, which is what she told me the last night I spoke with her. And that's the night I call the awakening for me, because that's when the mask fell for the very last time. I saw her for truly the evil person that she was. I knew then that she was glad my dad was gone. And it was so evil, I had to get out of that house. So I never looked back, and I haven't seen her since.
I'm Donna Andersen, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. So far in this podcast, we've been telling stories of people who've been traumatized by disordered romantic partners. This episode is different. We're telling the shocking story of a woman who was traumatized by her own mother. We'll call her Charlotte. All names in this story have been changed. Now in her 40s, Charlotte has come to believe that her mother has a serious personality disorder. But for most of her life, she adapted to Mom's inconsistency and coldness, not understanding how the stress of the relationship was damaging her. Charlotte grew up in a large southern city with both of her parents and her younger brother. Dad traveled frequently for business, so Charlotte's earliest memories are of being alone.
Like, I remember her being at home, but she was never interacting with me. I was alone a lot, especially before my brother was born. I remember sitting on a couch and just watching the clock until she would come out of her room and, maybe make me something for breakfast. My dad traveled a lot, so he wasn't around all the time. And so things were great when my dad was home. But when my mom wasn't home, the house just felt very silent and sad and, confusing.
Charlotte remembers being around age 3 and watching out the window as the garbage truck came to pick up the family's trash.
I got so excited, and I just remember saying, "Oh, Mom, I would marry a trash man if I was in love with him." I was just, I don't know why I would say something like that at such a young age. But it is something I said, and I remember vividly her looking at me and laughing, like not with me, or that was cute, but like, what did you just say? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Another time when Charlotte was 4, she woke up to find her house filled with people. She didn't know why they were there. She was confused and frightened.
I'm walking around our house. I'm crying. I remember going out into the backyard. There's all these people. And finally, I come upon my mother, and she understands that I've now gone through the house crying in front of all these people. And she takes me to the side of the house. And, I didn't know what was going on. Turns out we were having a rummage sale of some sort. And she took me to the side of the house. And I will just never forget, her face was just so, she just was like making this just awful, like grimace. Like, don't you ever, don't you ever do that again. Do not come out and ask where my mommy is. Like, it made her look bad. She's like, I told you what we were doing. This is a garage sale, So um, I don't have any like happy memories with my mother one on one, really, ever.
Charlotte learned to stay out of her mother's way. So when her brother James was born, she was thrilled to have companionship. James was 4 years younger. Charlotte took care of him like a little mother. He was a happy, bouncing baby boy, and he was her best friend.
We were the kind of kids that we'd build sandcastles together, and then, I'd remind him to take a bath or brush his teeth, or don't say that. But I took care of him. I coddled him. I loved my brother so much.
Mom favored James, but she barely mothered him, or her daughter. Charlotte wanted to know why.
And I remember being as young as like probably 7 or 8 and sitting on the couch, and she's busy working on the computer. And I said, Mom, why don't you show me love? And she just looked at me and she's like, what? I was like, what? And so then, of course, she just feels stupid. And I'm like, why don't you show me love? You don't love on me like dad does, or give me hugs or anything. And she just, again, it was the exact same response as when I was 3 years old with the trash men picking up our trash. It was the same exact response. It was like, you stupid little girl, laughing at me.
How did Charlotte feel about her mother's hurtful words?
I mean, I probably went into my room and cried. And so I think I learned really young to not be vulnerable with her, to not share, you know, things like that with her ever again. And I really never did, because I every time I did, it was that response.
Charlotte and James went to a prestigious K-12 parochial school where Mom taught Spanish. The woman Charlotte saw in school was totally different from the mother she saw at home.
So in public, I would say she was charming, charismatic, generous, attentive, confident, respectful, and even polite. I saw this side of her in public where she was all these great things, and she would be that way towards me in public. And then we would get home and it would be the opposite. And I just would think, I gave her the benefit of the doubt, like maybe she's tired, or maybe she's an introvert. Later on, I'm like, oh, maybe she's introverted at home, and it just takes all of it out of her, when she's out in public. So maybe she's just exhausted or tired. I always gave her the benefit of the doubt. I mean, she's my mother. I loved her. I wanted her to love me.
Dad, on the other hand, made his love for Charlotte clear.
My father was, he's the one that raised me with values and morals and discipline. And so, I mean, because he loved me so much, we were very close, but he just wasn't around a lot. And when he was home, he waited up for me every single curfew. I don't think he was ever asleep anytime I came home. My mother, on the other hand, I don't remember a single time that she was up waiting for me or caring.
Not only was Mom uncaring, but she actually appeared to be jealous of Charlotte.
And that was shown through just constant criticism, even making up lies about, my success. I would make cheerleader my junior year in high school. And I remember vividly her telling me, oh, the coach told me you almost didn't make it. I made varsity all 4 years in high school. She just wanted to get to me and pick at me. And she did it in every way, shape, and form that she could.
In fact, Mom was so jealous that she resented it when her husband gave Charlotte, then age 16, a special Christmas present.
My dad had gone and picked out a mink for my mom, and it was just this beautiful black, like swing coat, gorgeous, from Neiman Marcus. Had it all monogrammed. And then he hands me a box after she opens hers, and he had gotten me one as well. Not near as nice, not from Neiman's or by any means, but he had gotten me a pretty white mink coat and, had it monogrammed inside too. And my mom's face was like, her mouth just dropped. She just couldn't believe, and still to this day, she'll say, I cannot believe he bought her a mink coat at the age of 16. Like, she was so mad about it. And it's like jealousy, and jealousy for sure.
Mom wanted gifts, expensive ones. She wanted the family to vacation in Europe. Her husband provided well, but she kept pressuring him for more. One day, when Charlotte was a new driver, the family visited Dad's parents, who lived 3 hours away. That's when the pressure caught up with him.
My dad was under a lot of stress with work always, and she did not help. She added. And so he was with us this weekend, that one weekend, and he was just so, his stomach was upset. And he started, blood was coming out. And I'll never forget, my mom being like, you take him home. I can't deal with this. We were 3 hours away from the hospital. And I, as the 16-year-old, drove him home while my mom stayed with his parents because she didn't think it was that big of a deal or necessary. And he ended up in the hospital getting a blood transfusion. It was stomach ulcers from extreme stress. And it wasn't the first time it happened either.
Charlotte couldn't wait to graduate high school, but of course her achievement was all about Mom. Charlotte was a good student, but not a great one. Still, at graduation, she won an award for the most improved writer.
When I won the award, I almost didn't even hear my name, and my friend next to me, she's like, stand up, go get it. And I can see my mom in the audience, and her mouth is wide open, like she had no idea. And I didn't think anything of it until after the graduation. I see my family, everyone's congratulations, I love you. My mom comes up and she goes, I had no idea about the award. And when they were announcing it, all of my colleagues were just looking back at me and just so excited. I couldn't tell what was going on, but they were just looking back at me because they were so happy for me to get this news. That is what she said. No congratulations, just all about her. In that one moment, that's a moment, a graduation moment, right? That you should hear congratulations, I love you, I'm so proud. And that's what I heard.
If you're wondering if someone in your life is a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, and you need advice on escape and recovery, talk to Donna. Donna Andersen, author of Lovefraud.com and host of True Lovefraud Stories, offers personal consultations. Since she founded Lovefraud in 2005, Donna has collected more than 10,000 cases. So she's probably heard a story like yours before. You're certainly not alone. Donna is also a certified Reiki master. Reiki is a healing approach for stress reduction and relaxation. Donna combines this with her deep emotional release technique to help you let go of the pain of your experience. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna.
Charlotte went to college 3 hours away from her home. She was deciding between two sororities, one of which her mother belonged to. Charlotte picked the other one. Her mother was not happy.
I'll never forget when I told her on the phone, she hung up on me.
Charlotte was thrilled when she got into the sorority that she wanted.
I'm running down the street and I get my t-shirt and I have all the girls and we're taking pictures. I'm so excited to find a new group of friends. I see my mom. She walks over to me. She acts like she's hugging me and whispering in my ear. She says, "You're so stubborn."
Charlotte loved college, although about once a month she came home to see her brother and dad. Still, away from her mother, she grew as an independent woman. She also started dating a great guy named John. Charlotte planned to spend her last semester studying abroad in Spain, although Mom managed to put a cloud over her trip.
And one particular time this Christmas before I left for Spain, my mother, I remember she sat by me when she was opening her big gift from my dad. She was all excited, which was not typical for her to just sit next to me and open her gift, you know? Um, she was a lot colder and aloof and kind of always in like her chair. So I thought that was weird. And she opens up this gift and it's this beautiful sapphire ring with diamonds all around it. I mean, it looked like Princess Kate's wedding ring. It's gorgeous. And I'm just, oh wow, mom, that's so pretty. That's so pretty. And she just starts to look so sad. She goes, and then she kind of looks like that grimace again. She looked at me and she's like, I don't know why your dad does this. I can't go visit you in Spain now. He's just spent my money to go visit you in Spain. Well, she never planned to visit me in Spain.
While Charlotte was in Spain, she stayed in touch with her college sweetheart, John. Even though they were apart, they were becoming closer.
John is an incredible man and always has been, and is kind and generous, and um, he's just kind of hard to hate, you know. So he, you know, my parents loved him. My mom, of course, acted like she loves everybody. But you know, behind closed doors with just me and her, I remember coming back from Spain and telling her, I think I found the one, mom. I think I'm gonna marry John. And I'll never forget it. We were laying out, we were on a vacation on a cruise, and I got the nerve to say something vulnerable and tell my mom, which I never did. And she just kind of looked over at me and she goes, huh, that was it.
After graduating college, Charlotte temporarily moved back into her family's home. Mom heard about a movie that was being filmed downtown and got Charlotte a one-day job on location. The job ran late, and Charlotte's cell phone died. When she finished around midnight, she went right home. That's when Mom got her on the phone.
And she was screaming at me on the phone. Where the hell have you been? Why haven't you called? Why have you? I mean, just screaming at me. And it was so rageful. I could tell she'd been drinking. My parents drank all the time. They were very much high functioning alcoholics, but they didn't always act drunk. This was drunk and crazy behavior. And this is like one of the few times I would say that her mask fell.
Dad dropped Mom off at the house and left. She continued her rant.
And she's screaming at me in the house, just screaming at me. And I'm like, I was at the freaking thing that you planned, you crazy woman. I mean, I think I finally stood up for myself in that moment. And she's losing her mind. She starts packing her bag and she goes out on the front. She goes outside. She says she's called a cab. She's going to a hotel. And she's sitting on the front curb. And I go out front and I am just like, I'm in tears. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I'm pleading. I'm like, why are you like this? Like, why are we not close? Like, what's going on with you? And she just sat there and stared at me and said no words. So I ended up getting up and going inside. And I also left the house and went to spend the night with some friends because I felt unsafe. I didn't know what was happening. I saw evil in her eyes that night for sure. But I went and spent the night and I came back the next day, and I'll never forget. I'm walking in the kitchen. I'm kind of nervous. Like, my parents are home. Like, are we going to talk about it? Well, no, we don't talk about anything. I come in and I hear her on the couch and she says, Hey, sweetie, did you have fun last night? I poked my head around the corner, like I'm thinking somebody's there, like my godmother or something. I mean, that's not the way she talks to me ever. I poked my head around the corner and I looked at her and I was like, yeah, are you okay? And she just is like, I'm fine.
About a year later, Charlotte got a job and moved into an apartment with her best friend from college. She was engaged to John, and when he came to visit, they had a great time. But James, Charlotte's brother, was struggling.
My parents had gifted me a acoustic guitar, and he picked it up. I had no skill and taught himself how to play, and he could play anything based on it on his ear. He didn't really know how to read sheet music, but he had that gift.
James started recording music and playing gigs. He enrolled in a college that had a music program, but it was a little too far away and a little too wild.
And I think he kind of got in with a crowd that was maybe just smoking a little pot. But I think that became a gateway for much harder drugs for him later on.
James failed his freshman year. Mom and Dad paid for him to try college a couple more times.
But he never graduated from that college. He ended up coming home and moving in with my parents, and probably during, some of the most tumultuous years in our house, and began drinking and doing drugs while he was sort of trying to figure out his music plan and playing gigs. And that's when he met his wife, who was 18 years older than him.
James was 22. The woman was 40 and married.
He met this married woman who was sort of just kind of started following him around in his gigs. And she left her husband and they moved to another city in our state. And my parents had no idea what to do. I think that my parents tried to just keep him in their life and in communication as much as possible. But my brother was clearly rebelling against my parents.
Charlotte and John, in the meantime, moved forward with their wedding plans. When the event finally arrived, Mom kept finding ways not to participate. She was more excited about her childhood friend arriving for the party than for her daughter's upcoming marriage. The morning of the wedding, Charlotte's mother was nowhere to be found.
She didn't show up when I was getting my hair done the next day. Like, she was with her friend. I was there by myself with the hairdresser. I called my friends who were, getting their hair done down the street or something. I mean, because they thought I'd be with my mom on my wedding day. And I give them a call, and, some of them show up with their hair done. And, then we make our way over to the church, and I'm with all my bridesmaids, and, we get in a little circle and we say a prayer. And my mom comes in literally right before we're supposed to walk down the aisle. And she comes in and she's like, she always comes in when it's not about her. She always comes in angry and agitated and upset about something so that she draws attention away. And so that's what she did. And she came in. And so I was able to kind of, hey, Mom, you excited? We're about to do this. And, click, click, camera one gets, the one picture of us smiling at each other. And my friend, my bridesmaid, came over and told me, hey, Charlotte, your daddy's outside. I think you might want to go talk to him. And I go outside. My mom didn't say that to me. My friend did, thank God, because I go outside and my dad is like slumped on the bench. He looks defeated. He looks like she's just, I don't know, just gone at him. And he looks so sad. And he looks manic, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to get down the aisle, So I sit down next to him, and, you don't talk about things in my family. So we talked college football. How do you think your team's going to do this year, Dad? And how do you think our team's going to do? And how about, this NFL team? And so we had a nice conversation, and I told him how much I loved him and thanked him. But it was almost like she didn't even want me to know he was out there so that I wouldn't have that experience. And I'll just never forget, like, pictures afterwards. I mean, I can't even put any pictures up of us because my dad is just, he's defeated. He's not smiling. His eyes are sunken in like he hasn't slept in days. So, yeah, my dad had a real hard time with the wedding, and she made it terrible.
In the middle of Charlotte's wedding reception, Mom found something better to do.
We're having a fun time, and I see my mom like leave the room and then come back and then leave the room again and then come back. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, so excited to tell me that the high school that she graduated from's 30th anniversary is right across the hall. And oh, how fun, and blah, blah, blah. And actually, it wasn't her high school, it was my dad's high school. So anyway, they had a lot of friends in common, and that was going on. And she invited people from that party into our wedding. And again, just made it about, oh, how cool that we're having a wedding at the same time as this high school with all of our friends. It was like that. It was just weird. She just was so, to me, I look back and I'm like, I wasn't really on to her yet, really. I knew she was not a good mom and, very cold and all of those things. But I don't know. I guess back then I was just so ready to get away from her that's all I was focused on.
Charlotte moved away with her husband. From time to time, she and John visited her parents, who were always entertaining guests. James, in the meantime, had moved to a music town with a divorcee. He was 24 and she was 42. He wasn't doing well.
He had completely changed in appearance. His teeth were sort of rotting. His face was just all pockmarked, and his hair was greasy, and he had these glasses on, like John Lennon glasses, and he didn't look healthy. He didn't look sober. And I don't know drugs, so I don't know what people are on, and I didn't then. My husband, John, actually was a sheriff's deputy, and he absolutely knew what was going on, but you don't want to think that way when it's your family.
Charlotte and her parents then learned that James had been secretly married to the older woman for 2 years. The woman's parents didn't know either. After hearing the news, all 4 parents decided that, since they were now family, they should meet for dinner.
James and his wife were there, and they had a nice dinner. It was that night that my brother sort of lost his mind, like needed a fix or needed to get out of the house, or just he kind of had started acting a little manic like that when he started using drugs. And so I was told that his wife and they were staying with my parents. His wife was like, no, 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 please don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go. You don't need to go see him, or wherever he was trying to go. And my brother just took the keys and left. The next thing they knew, my parents were being woken up by my brother's wife, who was on the phone with James. And James was totally freaked out. I think he was overdosing. Yeah, he was overdosing at the time. And he was just saying how scared he was, and he didn't know where he was. And my parents were like, do you recognize, any place where you're at? Where are you? What do you see? And he died, like on the phone with them without any information. And they found him by the next morning in someone's yard by the country club we used to grow up at, where he would go golf with my dad. That's where he was.
Charlotte was already at work when James was found. John went to her office to break the news. Her younger brother, her best friend growing up, was dead.
And I collapse and I'm screaming. I remember being on the phone with my mom and my dad, and they were screaming and crying. It was just awful.
Charlotte and John packed up their baby girl and drove 3 hours to her family's house.
It was so surreal and sad, and my whole family was gathered. It was nice to see my cousins, my aunts and uncles, but when I got to the door, I didn't know what to expect. But my dad opened the door and he had been crying, you could tell. He was just beside himself. But he put this big smile on his face and he reached out to my daughter and he's like, "There's the future. There's the future." And it was so, that is a perfect example of the positive attitude that my dad always had. He always saw the forest for the trees, maybe rose-colored glasses, but he was positive and kind and caring. And he was so sad when he lost his son that I think he died of a broken heart 9 years later. He basically never got out of his chair again. He probably gained about 150 pounds over that period of time. A lot of drinking and smoking, and I would come in town and try to lift him up, and a few times he would get probably when he had enough liquor in him, he would say some things about my brother, but it was really never allowed to be talked about around my mother ever since my brother died. It was like, you don't talk about it. It wasn't addressed. I think I told you, we weren't even allowed to say a prayer at Thanksgiving after he passed. It was just bizarre how my mom handled it. And, of course, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt because people handle grief in different ways. Well, they don't handle it in ways where you don't shed a tear. That's just cold. I never saw her cry. Over my brother or my dad. I saw her act like it, but there were no tears.
So, how did Charlotte's mother behave after her son's death?
When my brother died, she was totally hostess with the mostest. She was so about everybody being at the house. I feel like everybody was at our house for 4 days, just coming and going and bringing foods, and she was so happy to have the attention is what it felt like. But we're from the South, and hosting people is what we do, and so you put that face on, and no, she was loving every minute of it.
After her brother's death, Charlotte seemed to forget all about her negative childhood and focused on trying to fix her family. Every month, she and John packed up their children, they had a son as well, and drove 3 hours to spend time with her parents. But 9 years later, her dad died.
I completely fell apart. So my mom was the same after my dad died. She loved the attention she was getting. She loved all the people coming over.
Before her father's funeral service, Charlotte and her mother met with the priest, who asked about him so she could prepare a eulogy.
I remember saying at one point, my dad was so smart. He was so intellectual. He was so well-read. He knew history so well. And I remember my mom just looking at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" She had the most disagreeable, "Are you crazy?" look on her face when I was talking so positively about him. So
later, as they were sorting through her father's clothes, they found the sapphire and diamond ring he had given to Charlotte's mother so many years ago. It had disappeared after James died, Mom had accused her son of stealing it for drug money.
So she had me believing that that ring, disappeared. So after my father died, what do we find? We find the ring in some bag in a pocket. Oh my goodness, it's been here all along.
Now that her husband was gone, Charlotte's mother could stop covering up her abusive and manipulative personality.
The mask completely fell, and she was just awful all the time, in public now and in private. So I think she's getting older too, and I think she's kind of tired of the fake life she's portrayed, and she's just being her true self, which is just unkind and ugly and manipulative and all these dark things that it just all hit me at once. Like, oh my God, how did I survive this? Because my brother sure didn't, and neither did my dad. And I absolutely blame her for both of those deaths. Not that her hands have blood on them, but her heart does, and her mind does, and her soul does. She did nothing to help anyone in our family ever when they were sick, when my dad showed signs of mental illness or, mental health issues, which were obviously there. She was driving him crazy and lapping it up.
Charlotte hadn't yet realized the truth of her mother's personality. After her father died, Charlotte was sad for her mom.
I still love my mom. I want to take care of her and make sure we can, spend our lives together and celebrate Christmas together and all these things that we could do in my mind. But then we moved her into our house, and that's when it got so dark.
Charlotte convinced her mother to sell the old family home, move 3 hours to her city, and buy a new house nearby. While she was looking for a house, Mom lived with Charlotte and her family. At the time, Charlotte was running her business from home and gave up her office so Mom could stay in the room. She was overwhelmed with work and family responsibilities. Mom did not help.
Not one finger did she lift, not one, hey, can I get some spaghetti together? Can I fold some laundry? Nothing. I did it all. And my husband had his own company too. So he wasn't able to be around as much. So you'd think I'd get some help. No, I got more work is what I got. And I never forget one time I, called her from upstairs and said, would you mind going to get some milk and some eggs so I can, throw this whatever in the oven? And she lost her freaking mind. She was so pissed that I asked her to do anything.
Mom lived with Charlotte and her family for 6 months. She finally bought a new house 4 blocks away.
By the time she bought her house, I was done with her. But it's pre-awakening still. So there's maybe a year that she lived in her house that we had minimal contact, but when we did, it was awful. And she didn't understand she was awful, of course. She thinks she's normal, but just things she would say and do, and she was just awful. And it was like my dad wasn't alive, so she didn't have to keep her mask on anymore.
Charlotte started thinking about how her mother had treated her all her life. Cold, indifferent. The woman never showed up for milestone events, like Charlotte's graduation from leadership class, or when she was honored as one of the city's 40 top achievers under 40.
And I just started to put it all together. And I just got more grossed out and sort of, traumatized by the realization that not only is this just not a good person for me to be around and my kids to be around, but just a very sick, twisted, unhealthy person. And I started counseling immediately and therapy, and I started studying a lot about narcissistic personality disorder. And, I know that's a word that's used a lot today, But I'm telling you, I could have a master's in that now. And she checks every box and more. I think there's 9 traits that a narcissist has. She has every single one of them. Plus, she doesn't cry when her son and husband die. And that's what I realized was going on, was that I'm just dealing with, I mean, maybe, I don't know, a sociopath at this point. And I needed to get my family away. So through therapy, I converted to Catholicism during this time. My faith helped me get through this. But that last night that I spoke to her and I finally realized all of this was the awakening for me of the nightmare that I had just lived through.
After learning about personality disorders, Charlotte looked at her life through a new lens of understanding.
Things she would provoke my dad to do or say to me. Like, I know she had him tell me one time in 8th grade that I needed to lay off the sweets, and I developed an eating disorder. So by sophomore year, I'm like 100 pounds. And I'll never forget, she nudges my dad at dinner and he starts screaming at me about how I need to eat now. So I wasn't in a healthy household, obviously, but she did provoke him to do her dirty work a lot. I figured that out later on.
Mom's older brother was an Episcopal priest, as was his wife. They had always been good to Charlotte. Now getting close to her breaking point with her mother, Charlotte reached out to him.
I called him and said, this is what's going on, and what do you know? Like, what's going on? Like, what's her past? Like, what's the trauma there? Like, has she always been like this? And her 2 brothers were 10 years older than her when she was born, so she was really kind of raised as an only child. And so, but he was around, and he's like, you know what, Charlotte, I've been praying for you since you were a little kid. He's like, she has absolutely shown signs of just this kind of behavior since she was a child. So, I mean, that's my uncle, her brother, an Episcopal priest, telling me this. And I'm like, well, he can't lie. I mean, that's confirmation. And that made me feel, of course, terrible, but validated.
For years, Charlotte's parents came to her home for Christmas morning with the children. But now, Dad was gone. Mom lived around the corner. Charlotte and John decided that for the first time ever, they would celebrate Christmas morning with their children, just the 4 of them. Mom was invited for Christmas dinner, along with John's parents. Mom was not happy. On Christmas morning, she kept texting and texting. When can I come over? When can I come over? Finally, Charlotte said to come by.
My kids open the door and she comes in all angry and upset and flustered with all the presents, just making a big deal of nothing. And I just ignored her. And my mother-in-law was like, can I help? And she, no, I've got it. And I remembered at one point, I forgot to set the table. So my mother-in-law is like, oh, here, I'll help you real quick. And my mom was like, well, I'm not gonna, because I just don't think enough people will fit in there. And then she ended up coming in and just standing there, like staring at us, like, what are y'all doing? Just so rude.
Charlotte got through Christmas dinner, and as soon as it was over, said, okay, bye, everyone. She essentially kicked her mother out.
Oh, and that pissed her off. And I did not hear from her for months. I had my birthday come and go in March. Still hadn't heard from her. 5 days later, I get a text. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. We haven't been able to connect for your birthday. I mean, she never remembered a birthday ever in my life. But she intentionally didn't remember it again, and then reaches out, like making it emotional. I need to see you. And I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, I'm going to have to address some lies and some truths here, And so I knew I was going to have to have a conversation with her and confront her and let her know what harm she's done. And that's the kind of conversation I intended to have.
Charlotte made plans to visit her mom. When she got there, they opened a bottle of wine. She usually needed at least 3 glasses to deal with her mother.
we opened our wine and we had a couple of glasses of wine, and some truth starts coming out from her. I asked her, do you think dad really, really cheated on you like you've said after he died? And she had enough wine where she's like, I don't think he had it in him. So I'm like, oh my God, this woman has told me that my father has cheated on her multiple times. And now she's like, no, I don't think he had it in him.
Charlotte had worn a sweater, and she was getting hot. She asked her mother for a shirt, and Mom came up with one that Charlotte had previously given her.
So I can't continue the conversation. I start to bring up, things that happened in the family that were hurtful and in the past. And she slowly just got real quiet, and she knew I was on to her now, and when I finally was like, did you ever think of things this way or through this lens? Or, did you ever think about how I felt, or, how dad felt? And she was just quiet. And at one point she just goes, I'm sorry. And then after a minute, she goes, well, I guess we still have problems. And that's when I got up and I just went, okay, I can't do this anymore. Bye, Mom, love ya. And that's literally the last words I said to her. And I walked out the door. Oh, but not before she asked me to give her back the shirt I gave her that I put on when I got there because it was so hot in there. She's like, well, that's my shirt. Actually, it's mine. Thank you very much. And I said, oh, you're right, it is. And I took it off and I dropped it on her head. And I said, bye, Mom, love ya. And I walked out the door in my bra and jeans, got in my Suburban and drove 4 blocks home. And I haven't seen her in 2 years.
Two weeks after that final visit with her mother, Charlotte's body collapsed.
I fainted in our bedroom, just from complete exhaustion, I think, and probably not taking care of myself. And I was hospitalized and kept overnight for, just several testing and things. I ended up being fine, but it obviously was, a reaction to the stress and trauma that I was sort of reliving through ever since that conversation, which I actually recorded the 2-hour conversation with her. So I, was listening to it and just trying to make sense of things and revalidate myself. And just, I probably shouldn't have done that. It probably just made me a little crazy. I mean, I lost my mind. I was so blindsided, I guess, but I shouldn't have been, obviously, but just in hurt and just feeling the lowest of the low I have ever felt in my life. Now, I am happily married to the love of my life, and I have 2 happy, healthy children. I've never been happier in my life, thank God. And we have worked very hard to create this life, this happy life that we live. But on the flip side, there's this but my childhood, I am now mourning this childhood version of me, this poor little girl that wasn't, that hurts. It stings, and it's a lot to work through.
So Charlotte was dealing with the hard truth of her mother's disorder, running a business. Her husband was running a business, raising 2 children, and then her son flipped his go-kart and broke his arm in half.
I had to pull this thing off of him and carry into my car and get into the hospital. It was the most traumatic thing I ever went through at the same exact time that this was going on. And I remember right before I fainted, the last thing I thought was, my mom's going to be so mad at me for not telling her my son broke his arm. And then I wake up in the hospital and I remember that that's the last thing I thought. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You have got to take care of yourself. This woman is going to kill you, literally. You've got to just move on. So that was the true awakening. I'd had that hard conversation. This was about 2 weeks later that my health just totally, I was on the floor, done for.
Charlotte needed time to recover and process everything, but she didn't get it. Over the next 6 months, Her clients went elsewhere, and her business was failing.
And I think I just hit the lowest I've ever felt in my life. And I wouldn't say I was suicidal. I was praying to Jesus that if this was the night, I was okay with it. My family is happy and healthy. Just take me away from this pain. I wanted to go. And I knew that meant I needed help immediately. And so that's what I did. I called my doctor, my physician, and I admitted myself into a mental health hospital for 4 nights.
For the first time in her life, Charlotte saw a psychiatrist.
I was diagnosed with CPTSD and severe depressive disorder and anxiety. So for the last 2 years, I've been trying to figure out my medicines, which has not been easy and not been fun. And my, fatigue is very high. I've not had any energy to work out. So, mind, body, and spirit, I have been impacted by this. And I really feel like I almost didn't make it. I could have been her third victim, but I'm not going to be a victim. And I'm so pissed that I was one because I never saw myself as a victim. And that's what makes me so mad. How dare you? How dare you? So, yeah, it's been tough.
Charlotte and her family are all in therapy, and they're healing. Her mental health is better. She's even overcome her eczema.
I've had chronic eczema and chronic skin issues and allergies my entire life. I will say it's completely gone away in the last 2 years. So I have absolutely no breakouts ever. And I remember, she would just walk in the door and I would start itching. I'm not exaggerating. She affected my internal autoimmune system.
Charlotte now recognizes how disordered and dangerous her mother is. She's been no contact with her for 2 years and intends to keep it that way. She hopes others who are in similar situations will do the same.
I will say I am very new at telling my story. And so this is the first time I've really ever even probably said the words all out loud together. And I guess if I can relate to anyone or help anyone see or understand the situation they're in and help in any way, that's why I'm sharing my story. And I'm a huge believer of no contact. I think that is the only way to keep yourself healthy and alive and your family.
I'm Donna Andersen, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. Charlotte knew for years that her mother was a terrible mom. Still, she gave her the benefit of the doubt and loved her. But after seeing her mother's indifference to the deaths of her brother and father, Charlotte realized that something was terribly wrong with the woman. Her disorder had affected the entire family. In the next episode of True Lovefraud Stories, I'll interview a therapist who will explain how profoundly disordered mothers affect their children. She'll also offer suggestions for how they, as adults, can overcome their traumatic childhood experiences. Be sure to listen. Would you say that you've come to terms with what your mother is?
Yes. Yes, I have, thanks to my faith. I'm able to see it through a different lens. There's that mother scar or wound, that is just always going to be there and is so deep. But I have found comfort in my true mother, the Virgin Mary, and that's how I see it. My mother was a carrier for me to get here on this earth, but my true mother and father are in heaven. So That's how I see it. And that's how my faith has absolutely helped me be able to see through scripture, um, see this as, you know, not normal, but I'm not crazy. This happened. It happens. And without my faith, I don't think I would not be here. That's for sure. And, my mother was the opposite of a faith-based person. So, I mean, she didn't look like it or act like it, especially she went to church. But and that was something to have to deal with. Like just the hiding the evil behind the Christian persona just for me is so dark and so depressing and awful, that if I didn't have my faith, I would not be here for sure.
True Lovefraud Stories is produced by Lovefraud.com. For more information about this story, other great stories, or if you'd like to share your story, visit podcasts.lovefraud.com. Engineering is by Terry Kelly. To learn how to recognize and recover from everyday sociopaths, visit lovefraud.com. You'll find articles, books, and webinars. You can also make an appointment with me, Donna Andersen, for advice on dealing with and recovering from a disordered individual. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna. Also, I invite you to my Lovefraud Live YouTube show. I talk about how to spot, escape, and recover from sociopaths, and then I answer your questions. It streams live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I look forward to seeing you there.